The other big story of the day, after raising the Kashmir bogey, Pakistan today tried to introduce another irritant in Indo-Pak ties. In a letter to the UN Security Council, Pakistan's ambassador to the United Nations, Maliha Lodhi, accused India of building a wall along the line of control. But that claim has boomeranged, and really badly, because Pakistan's complaint wasn't based on fact. It was a quote from a terrorist. Smita Sharma reports from New York.
Will they or won't they meet in New York? That's the big question. Narendra Modi and Nawaz Sharif will be at the walled-off Astoria Hotel at the same time, but the possibility of any meeting seems remote, with Pakistan introducing a new irritant in bilateral ties. Islamabad has complained to UN Security Council, alleging that India was building a wall along the line of control. In a letter to the UN Security Council President, Pakistan's ambassador to UN, Maliha Lodhi, alleged that the wall was being constructed with the plan to convert the LoC into a quasi-international border. But Pakistan's allegation is based not on any hard evidence, but a submission made by Hizbul Mujahideen chief Syed Salahuddin. The wall claim has been demolished by India by pointing out that Pakistan has quoted a global terrorist in its letter.
Nawaz Sharif's speech in the UNGA is going to be braced a lot with the Kashmir word, and ahead of that, in fact, Pakistan once again trying to raise the Kashmir bogey. It was last month when on 4th September and on 9th September, the Pakistani envoy to its permanent mission to the UN, Maliha Lodhi, had shot off those two letters, which MEA said that the first letter seemed to be contradicting itself, because where they complained of no bilateral dialogue happening, which was followed by that meeting between the Pak Rangers and the BSF. On the second letter, which complains of an Indian embankment construction along the LoC, MEA says that it seems to be submissions made by Syed Salahuddin of the United Jihad Council, who is considered a global terrorist by India, and they will only appropriately respond at a later time.
Left red-faced after its wall at LoC complaint, Pakistan has now put the onus of Modi-Nawaz meeting on India. India has also said that it will respond if Nawaz Sharif raises the Kashmir issue in his address at the UN General Assembly on 30th September. With Smita Sharma in New York, Bureau Report, India Today.
So basically what you have in the United States today, right ahead of the United Nations General Assembly, is Pakistan putting in a complaint with the UN based on the words of a terrorist. The Hizbul Mujahideen founder and chief, Syed Salahuddin, a wanted terrorist. That's what Pakistan has done. It's being interpreted as a self-goal, an embarrassing diplomatic gaffe by Pakistan's very own ambassador to the United Nations. Let's go straight across to India Today's Deputy Editor, Smita Sharma, who's bringing us the very latest from there. Smita, a diplomatic gaffe, friendly fire, a self-goal, call it what you will. The fact that Pakistan has invoked an imaginary wall that India wants to build on the LoC based on the fantasies of Syed Salahuddin are being jeered at, laughed at, mocked at this time.
That Pakistan has tried raising this Kashmir bogey. It's almost become a sort of a traditional practice year after year, and which is the reason why you see so many letters being written. Just last year, remember, whole of October, November, after India had called of the foreign secretary level talks, we saw Sartaji is writing several, in fact, letters to the UN. Now these Maliha Lodhi letters that were apparently written on the 4th and 9th of September. These two have come into surface, but clearly India saying that dismissing of these letters and stressing on the fact that while one of the letters spoke about no bilateral dialogue, even though, there was a talk immediately that happened between the Pak Rangers and the BSF, and secondly, of course, on that imaginary wall, which they say was actually a part of Syed Salahuddin's speech.
Smita, this is, this is a bizarre situation. There has been speculation, ever since the sort of very visible breakdown of dialogue between India and Pakistan, swirling speculation about whether, Prime Minister Narendra Modi and his Pakistani counterpart Nawaz Sharif will have, an official discussion or a pull aside? Will they be, in the same room where they might have to exchange glances or exchange a few pleasantries because they will be on the same forum? But it appears that the rhetoric from Pakistan and India's own preparations to battle any invocation of Kashmir, which has traditionally, like you rightly said, been done on the United Nations forum, it appears that things aren't looking very good as far as Narendra Modi and Nawaz Sharif actually meeting in any way at all. Well, remember that today is a very crucial day. In the next 1 hour, Prime Minister Modi will be addressing a crucial conference on sustainable development at the United Nations. But ahead of that, the tone and tenor of his second day in the United States has been completely controlled by what Pakistan has done in the form of twin letters written to the United Nations, where it has underscored and quoted from a terrorist's rhetoric, if you can believe that. Pakistan's reputation as a sponsor of terror is well known, but quoting from a terrorist's letter has to be a first. Was this not vetted? Was this somehow something that fell through the cracks? Either way, it is being seen as a diplomatic gaffe. Well, Smita, the question I was asking you, I'm sorry you couldn't hear me, was, given the rhetoric ratcheted up by Pakistan as far as Kashmir is concerned, and India's own concern and India's own preparations to battle that at the UN, it doesn't look like the Modi-Sharif, meeting that's been so speculated upon will happen in any form at all, Smita.
Yes, that's what in fact it looks like at the moment, Shiv. Of course, a bilateral meeting clearly not on the schedules, and any possibility of a chance meeting only maybe on the 28th when the two leaders share space in that room. But clearly with Pakistan upping the ante, and also Sartaj Aziz, when we spoke to him this morning, remember, rolling the ball into India's court, saying that it depends on India if they want any sort of a meeting at all or not. Shiv, I'm outside the United Nations today, where in a short while from now, in fact, Narendra Modi will be delivering an address in that Sustainable Development Summit. He will be speaking on the Sustainable Development Goals set for 2030 by the United Nations. It's a lovely, bright, in fact, morning here in New York, and I'm joined by three special guests as well. So let me try and get in them into this discussion now. Dhruv, of course, is a fellow with the German Marshals. Yoshita is with the Press Trust of India, has been following the United Nations and its various activities for several years now in New York. Raj Chengappa, the Group Editorial Director for India Today. Raj, to begin with you, while we are at the UN and the PM is going to speak on sustainable development, but it's always the Indo-Pak story that creates much amount of buzz. Does it look really possible, given the fact that Maliha Lodhi's letters have now surfaced, when India has dismissed rubbishing off whatever she said? Sartaj Aziz, when India Today spoke to him, saying that, any chance meeting also depends on India. What does it look like really at the moment?
Smita, this is a special day, and I don't think we should get hyphenated with Pakistan on this. Today is probably the most important day for humanity. The Pope just spoke. I was inside there. Shakira sang John Lennon's Imagine. This is a day that if we don't act now, there are greater perils than just Pakistan. This is a day, I think, where when Narendra Modi speaks, he speaks for India and the rest of the world in trying to control, climate change that's gone out of hand completely. He's coming here to give those goals, make sure that the earth is saved. And that's why I think whatever we saw today is requires not only divine intervention, as the Pope came and spoke, but also human intervention.
But Dhruv, last year also we saw Prime Minister Narendra Modi, when he made his debut speech, there were actually not too many negative references. There were no talks about Pakistan, about them being the haven of terrorism. The only time he spoke about Pakistan was when he said that the two countries could come together to fight and eliminate poverty and deal with those Kashmir floods. So is it a sort of a deliberate stand perhaps you see on the Indian Prime Minister's part here? Also is not addressing the UNGA. Sushma Swaraj will have to reply to the rhetorics and the barbs that Nawaz Sharif will be giving in his address in the UNGA.
No, absolutely. I think the Prime Minister has indicated that there are bigger issues at stake, as Mr. Chenkapa noted, not just on sustainable development, but on a whole host of other issues, UNSC reform, and largely India's objectives. Again, you see he has a very busy schedule of bilateral meetings yesterday and today, and some will continue even beyond today. And he's meeting leaders from across West Asia, leaders from key countries in the UN, as well as India's neighbours. He's had meetings today with leaders of Bhutan. He'll be meeting with Sri Lanka. So, I mean, I think he's shown that he has a very expansive vision for India's place in the world. And actually, Pakistan is conspicuously absent from that.
Okay, so that seems very interesting and perhaps a new template of sorts. But Yoshita, as Dhruv mentioned, that today the series of bilaterals that we look at, Narendra Modi holding those meetings with Egypt, with Jordan. He's also meeting, of course, with heads of states in UK, US in the days to come. This entire push for a seat on the UNSC, where do you see it going as far as India's efforts are concerned?
First of all, it was a very, very major, significant decision by the UN General Assembly to commence text-based negotiation. It's a big victory for India, because so far there was no text on the table on Security Council reforms. People were just saying numbers and there was no substantial thing on paper. So this is a major push that India has got. And now going forward, with the text on the table, there's a big chance that a lot of countries, they want the UN Security Council reforms. I mean, it's 70th anniversary session of the UN. The world is very different from when the UN was established, and clearly developing countries, bigger powers like India, they have to have a bigger say in the Security Council and UN.
But Raj, even as India goes in for that push, really, is it more about prestige? Is it something that symbolically Narendra Modi would like to project as a government success? Because at the end of the day, I think Dhruv would also argue that many would say, what really is a UNSC reform all about if the veto still remains with the P5?
Well, certainly India deserves to be on the Security Council. There's no doubt in the last couple of years, maybe decades, we've emerged as a major power, and we need to take our rightful place over there. But today, actually, if you look, that is going to be a debate for the next 2-3 years that's there. Today, we're looking at the Sustainable Development Summit. Now, this is the culmination where each nation is now expected to perform on key issues that really concern humanity: health, water, gender equality, housing, infrastructure. Things that will make us all proper human beings, not just one small segment of that. And I think Prime Minister Narendra Modi is perfectly poised today when he speaks, because he has actually spoken of Swachh Bharat. He has talked of all the things, the programs that he has launched is meant for a lot of these sustainable development goals. So he's on a strong footing. Where we need to watch out for is that if you saw the announcements today and yesterday of America and China on climate change, the pressure is going to build on us. We have not yet declared what our emission reductions would be. The world will be watching. We may not do it now, but we need to do it before Paris in December. So I think that's the key in this particular summit that's happening right now.
Absolutely. In fact, we are being told that as far as any splash announcements on climate change are concerned, that has to wait till this year end for the Paris Climate Change Conference. But Narendra Modi perhaps going to emphasize that at least 15 of the 17 Sustainable Development Goals set by the United Nations are already being rolled out in India. Plans like Swachh Bharat, Clean Ganges, the Blue Economy, Jan Dhan, Manrega, or even the right to food. Having said that, Dhruv, we've seen Narendra Modi trying to take that role in SAARC, where he has said, we can be helping you out in development. The development has been the core thrust area. If you want to come along, fine, or sub-regionalism is the way forward. In UN too, is that going to be the key theme? That, we will not talk about terrorism, while terrorism is important for stability and for these goals to be achieved, but these are the menace of their own kinds.
There's a slight difference. I think SAARC is a regional forum, and therefore there's a focus on regional cooperation and regional issues. The UN is a global forum, and so I think naturally the canvas is bigger. He will be talking really about India's position in the world, and how India's development can actually benefit the world. I think it is important to note, and the Prime Minister has acknowledged this really, that India is home to the most people living below the poverty line, more than any other country, and so India actually has the most to benefit from the future, from global development.
Okay, Yoshita, I will keep coming also back to the Indo-Pakistan story, because that also generates a significant amount of interest. But you've been following the UN. Narendra Modi has met Ban Ki-moon today, and before he speaks at the session, he is in US. Barack Obama, of course, is somebody who can nudge both Indians and Pakistanis to come and sit on a desk and be good children and talk. Do you see considerable pressure this time? Do you feel that pressure that perhaps India might be asked once again to talk to Pakistan after all that has happened post-Tufan?
Well, the UN Secretary General, his spokesperson was asked the question whether he will encourage the leaders of the two countries because they will be in the same city at the same time. So, obviously, the encouragement for the India and Pakistani leaders to meet is always there. But again, it's a stand, it's a decision that India has to take. And given the fact that Pakistan has been writing all these letters to the UN Security Council on Jammu and Kashmir on this working boundary issue, it's a bilateral issue. India and Pakistan need to sort it out together. That's what India has said. But Pakistan keeps raking up the issue of Kashmir at the UN, which is a multilateral forum, and obviously this India would not accept.
Yes, and that's a stand that we have seen being taken by US also several times in the past, who have said that, India and Pakistan need to sort out their bilateral issues. But what is more important, as Raj Chingappa rightly pointed out, is that while the Pakistani story continues to hog limelight across news channels in India, it's about these goals, these development speeches, in fact, that the world will be looking at more closely, especially on India's stand on climate change. Here outside the United Nations, for now, it is back to the studio.
Thanks very much, Smita. And as we've been promising you here on India Today, our coverage will always be coast to coast. This is a coast to coast visit because Prime Minister Narendra Modi, who is in New York City now, heads to the West Coast in just a couple of days from now, where he will be engaging with the world's biggest software, social media and technology companies. Rahul Kanwal, Managing Editor, TV Today Network, is with us live from the West Coast. He's been in Silicon Valley. He's been talking to the people who will be interacting with the Prime Minister, and he joins us live now. Rahul, we had a look at some of your reports and I'm going to be playing them out in just a short while from now. Huge anticipation for the West Coast leg of Narendra Modi as well.
No, absolutely, Shiv. You'd assume that after the Prime Minister has done this a few times now, at the Madison Square Garden, at the Sydney Olympic Park Arena, in Shanghai, in Dubai, that the excitement would be beginning to wear down, that people would sense that there's a sense of deja vu. We've seen this, we've been there. But no, here in San Jose, there's huge excitement. In fact, people say between last year and now, their fascination for Prime Minister Modi has gone up. So regardless of what domestic media might be saying, the critics back home might be saying, here the Prime Minister still retains his pop star popularity. And the reality is people are coming in from all different parts of the West Coast. They're coming in, they're preparing. There's a huge scramble on. I was at one of the local radio stations called 1170 Desi AM, and I heard a couple of their broadcasts. Virtually every second person calling in was saying, do you have extra passes for the Modi event? And remember, unlike blue-collar workers of Dubai, getting these techies together is very difficult. They don't come in unless they're genuinely interested. You can't tell them that here's an excursion you must go for. Unless each one of them feels the calling, they're not going to go. And wherever you travel, and this is Desi Heartland in California, where I am in San Jose. Wherever you look around the streets, you're more likely to find a person of Indian origin than possibly a true-blooded Californian. But that's because Silicon Valley is fired by the imagination, the creativity, the innovation of Indians. 70% of the startups here are those started by Indians. And the question is, how can the Prime Minister create conditions back home for a Silicon Valley to be created? A lot of people we spoke to, Shiv, said, if we have Silicon Valley-like atmosphere back home, we don't need to come here and work in the United States. There's a lot of excitement building up to the big Modi visit, Shiv.
Become something of a permanent fixture now. Rahul, the big Modi rockstar concert, it's something that you expect whenever Modi goes to any country that has a sizable Indian population. And like you rightly said, if you take a look around, you'll find it difficult to walk a few steps where you're standing without bumping into a Desi, that's for sure. But apart from the fun and games and apart from the events, there's some serious business that's going down there when Modi reaches Silicon Valley, Rahul. All of those big, very influential tech companies are going to be looking to him and asking him some pretty straight questions and looking to him for guidance on the big digital future as far as India is concerned.
Absolutely, and that is where Prime Minister Modi sees a great amount of convergence with some of the digital lords here in San Jose. We'll be at the Google office today. The Prime Minister is going to be at Facebook, at Google, at Tesla. These companies are really at the cutting edge of technology. And Shiv, you know, when we are driving around some of these campuses, speaking to some of these people, they're fascinating lessons. Just see their campuses. You've got all kinds of sporting facilities, arcades. You love games, Shiv. They've got all, you'll go completely crazy over here. They've got all kinds of gaming happening. They've got sports facilities. There's food on the house. Really some lessons maybe Indian companies could take back home. If you want to create that environment of creativity, you really have to see people walking, and nobody wears a suit. They don't bother with that. They're just walking around in their Bermudas, in their t-shirts. They're coming to office. You bring your own pet along. So it's really fascinating in terms of the liberal atmosphere that's been created. And I think that's one of the messages that people over here want to send. You can't talk about digital innovation in an illiberal space. I think that's one of the serious messages. A lot of the entrepreneurs of the Indus Entrepreneur Group that I was speaking to were saying you have to foster liberalism. Synergy, digitization, cutting-edge technology cannot go hand in hand at a time when the government wants to clamp down on what you eat, what you wear, where you go. So they're saying both those things go hand in hand, and hopefully the Prime Minister will hear not just the first message, which is about digital innovation, but the other message about breeding a liberal environment which fosters innovation, which enables people to do their best. You can't do this when you've got Big Brother watching. You can't do this when you're forever wondering about what the government thinks or what you're going to do. If the government tries to clamp down, its choice is on you. So I think both those messages need to go out strong. The Prime Minister will be going to Tesla, he'll be going to Google, he'll be going to Facebook. And the one message is, why can't the next Google or Facebook come out of India? But that really requires the ecosystem that exists in California. And hopefully the Prime Minister will go back with both those messages, Shiv.
That's really, really well said, Rahul. The environment, the message that he takes away from there, it's not just going to be about interacting with all those Indians there. It's going to be what Narendra Modi actually brings back from there that's going to affect all of our lives in such a big way. Rahul, thanks so much. Enjoy your coffee. Enjoy the warm California sunshine. We'll be coming back to you at 10 p.m. for that live report to get much more on the West Coast visit of the Prime Minister Narendra Modi.